can say is, bro. Who are we tipping one out to tonight, Albie?
Karen Reed?
Yeah, hello. This is day 496 of us covering the Karen Reed trial.
Mr. Foreman, on docket number 2282CR117001, murder in the second degree, what say you? Is the defendant at the bar guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
So say you, Mr. Foreman? So say you? No. Do you agree?
Yes.
Do all of you agree? Yes. Thank you. 002, what say you? Is the defendant at the bar not guilty or guilty?
Not guilty.
Of?
Is not guilty or guilty of that charge or any lesser included charge?
Lesser included.
Thank you. Specifically, number 5, operating under the influence of liquor by operating a motor vehicle with a blood alcohol level of 0.08 or greater. Correct?
Yes.
So say you, Mr. Foreman?
Guilty.
So say you all?
Yes. Guilty.
003, what say you? Is the defendant at the bar leaving the scene after accident resulting in death? The defendant not guilty or guilty?
Not guilty.
So say you, Mr. Foreman?
That we like.
So say you all? Jurors, hearken your verdict as the court records that you upon your oath say the defendant on 001 is not guilty. On 0.
As I've been saying since day one of the Karen Reed trial, Alice, which we've been stuck to, we have been absolutely...
I talked about it a little offline with some people, but yeah, no one has ever been so happy to get a DUI in the history of the state of Massachusetts.
So she's not guilty.
So yeah, I mean, basically, like I said this to our friends when we were talking about this at the playground today. Like, regardless of whether you think Karen Reed hit him with the car or not, the way that the evidence was handled in that case, the way the investigation was handled in that case, the way the interviews were handled in that case was so egregiously corrupt and bad. Regardless, maybe she hit him with the car. Like, I do not know if she hit him with the car or not, and no one is ever going to know because they completely contaminated the crime scene, the witness statements, everything about it was a mess from beginning to end. And if John O'Keefe does not have justice, which he does not, because we are never going to know which side of this freaking thing was right. And like, I know probably there's a bunch of people who want
Turtle
me to
Boy knows.
Actually, what would you say to those who feel like John O'Keefe still hasn't received justice?
Well, all of these people here think John O'Keefe hasn't received justice because the people who murdered John O'Keefe are out there. They're the McCabe's and the Alberts, and John O'Keefe went into their home and never came out of it alive, and they threw him on the lawn like trash. So I would hope that all of us can unite at this point, now that Karen Reed has been exonerated, that all of us can unite and demand that the Alberts and the McCabe's and Brian Higgins be held accountable for what they did to John O'Keefe.
Now, there are at least probably 10 to 20 conspirators in this case who all related to or were definitely a participant in a cover-up, if not a murder of this person. And all of the DUIs, all of the violence, all of the drunkenness, all of the corruption, all of the everything, and that guy right there is the only one to go to jail.
Well, right. I mean,
that's Turtle Boy, a friend of the show, Aiden Kearney.
We love Turtle Boy.
Yeah,
he's great.
Who's, by the way, I hope he's made a fortune off of this because he sure as hell deserves it.
Great. I hope he has made good out of this because he is the only one who drew attention to this for months and months and months. All of the people who have made the Karen Reed trial a thing all are on the shoulders of Turtle Boy, really, from day one. That being said, I don't know what I believe, but the reason I don't know what I believe is because the evidence in this case, including witness testimony, because that is evidence also, including all of this, was so poorly handled from day one. And maybe it was poorly handled because these people are corrupt. Certainly, the Canton Police Department and all these people, this has all been in trouble over the, what's the other case? The Sandra,
the girl killing herself. Or
the case.
Who was killed, right.
Case. Right? The one, she didn't kill herself. Her cop boyfriend killed her his pregnant girlfriend, and it made it look like a suicide, and his friends covered it up, and they have now been federally charged with this stuff because I mean,
is it the same people?
Isn't it the same like police department? Didn't he work in
yes,
that
maybe.
same town?
Maybe.
Anyway, stranger things have happened. I'm absolutely not saying it wasn't a massive cover-up and framing of Karen Read, because that is well within the realm of possibility of things that could happen. I find my biggest thing was always finding it hard to believe that the injuries that he had were caused by somebody doing a 3-point turn in a driveway and who didn't notice. I just, that's a tough one for me. There's a lot of back and forth all those ways. The problem is, the reason John O'Keefe doesn't have justice, whether you think John O'Keefe doesn't have justice because Karen Read got away with something, or whether you think John O'Keefe doesn't have justice because the people in the house murdered him and covered it up, either way, he doesn't have justice because the cops did not do their job.
Right.
Whether malevolently or not. Like, there is no way we will ever know. People who are thinking we're going to prosecute the people who were in that house, like, are delusional. There's no evidence left. This is not, like, unless there's a secret trove of, like, text messages between them all talking about how they covered it up. Like, I don't see how there's evidence to convict anybody for what people are saying happened in that house. Like, it's a nice thought. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think there's any evidence left from this case. I don't think that anybody's ever going to know what happened that night who wasn't there. And I think it's sad and tragic all around. I think she probably deserved a DUI charge. I mean, that seems like fairly well established. I think she was pretty happy with that. But I mean, beyond that, it's, and that's like the lesson, that's the takeaway in like what happens when you don't follow evidence rules, right? Like, you know, if the whatever McCabe's and Alberts and all these a-holes and their friends and all the police departments who did whatever, like, if they were really freaking concerned about justice for John O'Keefe, then they shouldn't have been freaking throwing taillight pieces in red Solo cups. Like, that's, I don't know what to tell you. You have to handle this stuff properly, or you can't prove that things happened that you say happened. You know, like, it's so impossible to piece together this stuff way after the fact with no evidence. It's impossible. And I don't know, it's sad. Someone's dead. It seems like tragic and horrible all around. And like I say, like, I don't think anybody who wasn't there is ever going to know with any certainty what happened. Splash says Karen Read looks like a blast to hang out with.
Yeah, so that's in like, I have pretty much just nothing to say about this. I never have from the beginning. I find her to be like borderline Boston trashy hot, which I like, obviously. And some other, like the McCabe lady, looks kind of fairly hot. But I was, from the beginning of this thing, I was never interested in it. And I don't even know, like, and it wasn't like I wasn't above it, but
you're just not really a true crime guy.
I'm not a true crime guy. I don't know what Taunton, Massachusetts is. I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch of townies who seem to get wasted a lot, and she's fairly attractive. And they, like, I don't care. Like, none of these characters are anybody I wanted to do with anything. Just like 3 years ago, when I knew a guy who was essentially related to the dead officer, who told me about it when it happened, but I don't. It just never did anything. I've always hated the local news in Boston. I've always hated it, hated the actualities, which is the actual recorded voices of locals talking about house fires or this. It was always so trashy. And I'm not trying to be down on Boston accents. There's a special place for Boston accents in my heart, but it has to belong to a hot chick. But I just don't. I don't. Local news, Boston. I'm down. There was nothing about this thing that ever. And I think you were there with me, but I mean, you've subsequently learned or like got into it maybe, but we never talked about it once on the show. Like, once. It was never a topic once. It was never a topic on my radio show. Even though I had people asking me about it, Connecticut people who were into it. Mm-hmm. I was never into it. part of that was that I was trying to do local Connecticut news and just trying to lock in on all that stuff. But I just I don't know. The show just misses me. It's like it's kind of like going to the restaurant to Raising Cane's. I mean, it's a restaurant where you can go in and get a Diet Coke and chicken fingers, and like I can't imagine being emotional about it. I just can't. I'm glad. I like that scene at the end. I think the real story of this thing, if you were to ask me, is Turtle Boy, and this guy who is certainly like a gonzo journalist, but has been doing legit journalism in this state for a long time, and he's kind of a man alone right now. And they sent him to prison for God knows what. Somebody's got it out for him. And his prison chronicles were really well written. I can see a movie that's in the same way Henry Hill, was not the translator, who's the narrator of Goodfellas. That Turtle Boy could do there could be a screenplay and movie that's like that about his adventure because he's got the special insight. It seems like actually, even though I didn't see the real life thing, that movie seems like it would be fantastic. But I think what I can glean from it is that people are corrupt and people do bad stuff all the time.
And stupid and sloppy.
Stupid and sloppy, and this whole like balloon knot thing, and what are you? The guy's like 40, right? Like, and just covering for each other, and they're white hot drunk, and they're like, I don't know. I mean, if anything, actually, maybe I should like this. This feels more like a good old fashioned meaty Gen X thing. There's no real freak involved in this, right? Like, there's nobody who's in Fantasyland. I've seen Turtle Boy like get assailed by some psychotic people, but this is like it's almost.
On the record show, he also sometimes sleeps with some of the psychos too.
Well,
which doesn't necessarily. It sometimes causes more problems than it seems to me like it's worth looking from the outside.
But for the grace of God, Alice. Like, I mean, Indiana Jones was on the job, but still, sure. James Bond was on the job.
True. Turtle Boy.
But so
Boston accent James Bond.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. I just think that
and Mark in the chat is saying essentially like he thinks she's guilty. The data shows from the devices that John O'Keefe stopped moving forever at the same time she backed up her SUV at 24 miles per hour, and he was found in the exact same spot hours later. And he says essentially the jury was tainted by the Turtle Boy stuff, and like there's definitely people that feel that way too. That she drunkenly ran over her boyfriend, and like that Turtle Boy concocted a conspiracy theory that, by the way, she believed she hit him until all the Turtle Boy stuff happened too, as far as I can tell, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
I think she thinks she thought she hit him by accident until all this stuff happened with Turtle Boy and whatever.
If you're absolutely loaded, then that's very possible.
I mean, all kinds of stuff is possible.
Yeah.
The problem is that if you think that, and if you think she's guilty, then the cops really, really effed up handling the evidence in this case to such a degree that this amount of reasonable doubt was possible.
Yeah.
If you hit a person going 25 miles an hour with your car, there's going to be physical evidence left on the car. I mean, like, doesn't it seem like that would be true? You can't screw up the chain of custody of the freaking car. You can't mess this stuff up. You can't screw up this evidence, because if you do, then people get off. So whatever people's problem is, the police royally effed up, whether you think it's because they, what?
Oh my goodness.
What?
Oh no. Okay, commented. Okay. I thought we got a new Patreon because I lied about us covering the Karen Reed trial.
But what I'm saying is, like, it, whatever you think about her, he was denied justice because the cops extremely effed up this case. Because they're either insanely incompetent or wildly corrupt or possibly both.
I did nail Jenny Dodo's car in the White Hen parking lot in 1991 in Winchester. She never even reported me. What a good kid she was. Is still at the same time. Yeah, but you know, we were drunk too, just like Karen Reed. Have we exhausted the Karen Reed portion of it?
I think we're done with what we have to say about the Karen Reed trial.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it, but here you go. Congratulations, Karen Reed. I'm glad that a hot woman is free. Do I think that you would do that to me? Yes.
Run you over?
Freak yes. Oh my God. Okay.
If I did, would you want me to go free?
Yeah, I kind of like you in prison too. So the other thing that's going on today is the Tucker Carlson audio with Ted Cruz. The video, the podcast came out, and it's good stuff in the sense that Tucker is a bulldog in this interview.
He's really enjoy Tucker attacks. I enjoy it, even when it's cheap, and even when it's undeserved, and even when the person doesn't see it coming. I enjoy it. I do. I like him. I think he's funny. I think he does it well. I don't know.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, for part of his strategy, he abandons intellectual integrity to win. But it was definitely, the stuff is definitely interesting. He definitely does, you know, if you've done interviews that have gotten hostile or really tough, at least personally, and I think you can feel this on Tucker, is that he allowed himself to be pissed off by Ted Cruz. And so he was angry at him. And he's standing right there, and it's his way of saying, F you, dude, F you with all your stuff. And that's kind of what we heard. We played one cut yesterday, which we could do again. If
we didn't.
What, we did not? We didn't play any of them?
It wasn't out yesterday.
No, there wasn't that one teaser cut?
He did the teaser cut after the show. I tweeted it out. It was after the show. We did not do it.
Oh, okay. Let me find that teaser cut.
Yeah, Tommy in New Hampshire says, vicious interview, 1 hour left. Tucker is a bit of a tool bag, but interesting.
Yeah.
No, it's good. And actually, I almost enjoy it more when I don't agree with Tucker on the topic at hand, because I find it to be like a master at work.
Yes.
In whatever sense you want to take that. Like
So here, we'll start with this, with what you tweeted out yesterday.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
how could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and
what
predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump.
No,
you're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
Who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here, because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
Israel.
Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay.
So there's the first one. It's a horse bleep, gotcha stuff. Quizzing him. It doesn't have to know how many people are in Iran. We know the basics. We know the basics.
No, but I mean, like, Ted Cruz, just guess a freaking number. How far off can you be? You know what I mean? I have zero idea what the population of Iran is. Zero. Right. I probably would have said like 50 million if you asked me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Ted Cruz, you're Mr. fucking Brainiac. You can't take a guess. so you don't sound like a total
Well, I think he was
idiot.
also realizing that Tucker was going to do a trivia game with him. And then do his laugh at him and try to like take him down a notch
and
that way.
anybody can memorize some facts before an interview and then dunk on somebody else for not knowing the facts. But
sure, I just think it's.
But if you're going on Tucker to debate, going after Iran, like maybe
It's
just try and know
too easy.
something.
It's a cheap shot. If you ask Tucker, who was all for regime change in Iraq, 23 years ago, and if you asked him the population of Iraq, he wouldn't have known. He wouldn't have had the answer. It's just
of course
it's
not.
It's a glib, easy thing to say. Now, Cruz was not going to take this once he realized that.
And Tommy in New Hampshire says something interesting. Knows everyone, friends with everyone about Tucker. States things as agreed upon fact that aren't like. Tucker's interesting, and he's been on a bit of a publicity thing recently. He was just on All In. Is that what he was on?
Yes.
Yeah, and a relative of ours said oh, he was kind of interesting on All In. I thought he'd be way different than he was. He just seemed so not ideological, and that's the thing about Tucker. And I said this about Tucker years ago, when the Hunter Biden recommendation letter stuff was out. Do you remember that whole debate?
Yes.
That Hunter Biden wrote a recommendation letter for his son for college. I don't know that I have any idea what Tucker Carlson really believes.
Well, right, and you say all in now. That's the problem. Is that Tucker's kind of not all in. He plays cute and coy, and the same thing he attacked Jon Stewart for doing. Clown face on, clown face off.
Right.
He does a little bit as well. I'm just asking questions. It just seems to me that's weird. If you're going to call for regime change,
a little like Tucker, yeah. I like Tucker a lot, and I think
it's cute, but it's not really. It's a little bit disingenuous.
Some things I think are true about Tucker Carlson. I think he likes fly fishing.
Yes.
I think he likes nature and being out in the state of Maine.
Nicotine.
And nicotine. I think that's true.
Right, but
I don't necessarily, when he takes political positions or appears to take political positions, that he does just carefully enough that he can deny that he actually took the position later. I don't know whether I believe that he actually holds those political opinions.
Well,
I just don't. I think he's probably a pretty nice and fun guy. I think he believes a lot of the stuff that he says.
Well, and he also...
But I also don't know which parts of it or what percent. I just don't.
I believe he's also, and he comes from a writing background of the Weekly Standard, and he even wrote for commentary and, his other things, Daily Caller. He's a sharp shooter. He's a sniper.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's good at this one thing, finding a subject area, finding a target, getting a take, and blasting that person for that one thing. Other places he's perfectly vulnerable to attack. So that's why he does barrel rolls and things to get away after he does his sniper shot.
This is the most powerful country in the world. If you're calling for toppling in government, it's incumbent on you to know something about the country and to think through the consequences of that. And you haven't, and you don't. And I'm saying that's reckless.
I had a thought. Okay, you engage in reckless rhetoric with no facts. And to be clear,
I'm not calling for the overthrow of a government. You
put out a newsletter attacking Donald Trump and calling him complicit.
I've never attacked Donald Trump.
Yes, you have. And by the way,
I campaigned for Donald Trump.
Okay, yes.
And this is after anti-Semitism, this is the last refuge. You're an anti-Semite and you hate Trump.
Okay,
I love Trump.
I will read. You put out a whole newsletter saying Trump has abandoned America first. And here's what Trump said in response. Well, considering that I'm the one that developed America first, and considering that the term wasn't used until I came along, I think I'm the one who decides that. For those people who say they want peace, you can't have peace if Iran has a nuclear...
So it's always, especially when battling Tucker, it's always a mistake to have a piece of paper with the kill shot in your inside pocket, because it's bad optics to show, okay, here it goes. What was that guy who first, Heilman or whatever, the guy...
Oh my gosh, the guy who had the seizure and sued somebody off Twitter.
It was like the first 5 Tucker shows that made the show.
No, wait, I know his name. Keep talking.
It's okay. It's okay. But he's but this is what's going on here. And so, but he's got Tucker back on his heels here, so why not?
Nuclear weapon. So for all of those wonderful people who don't want to do anything about Iran having a nuclear weapon, that's not peace. That was directed at you.
Man, you got me. Busted.
No, I'm just saying.
Look, my views. Look, I like Trump. I campaigned for Trump. I know Trump. I talked to him last night. I'm not against Trump, and you know that.
But you're against his foreign policy.
I think that we should be very careful about entering into more foreign wars that don't help us when our country is dying.
When you say don't...
But by the way, and this is also Tucker doing something that the left does here. We should be very careful before entering into more foreign wars. Though that's a big license and big fissure for
Kurt Eichenwald.
Right.
But he had his binder of Tucker Carlson lies and omissions that he waved in front of the camera.
Here we go.
Yeah.
You're against this foreign policy.
I think
Listen to this wording.
We should be very careful about entering into more foreign wars that don't help us.
Entering a foreign war, that is a very broad statement. So us giving platform to part of the Iron Dome, which we do right now, or us providing a bunker buster bomb, is that entering a foreign war? Like, I think entering a foreign war, I see as troops unloading and the 82nd Airborne dropping people out of the sky.
Well, and what's interesting is that, I mean, World War II, for example, is the foreign war that everyone essentially now agrees we should have entered, right? Like, even the Antifa wieners go around saying, like, my grandfather fought Nazis, so I do too, all this stupid stuff, right? Like, so World War II has that status. At the time when, Roosevelt was running and we weren't involved in that war yet, he was swearing up and down he wasn't going to get involved in that war because the idea of getting into it was unpopular.
Yes.
And we were doing stuff behind the scenes to, like, help Britain and
it wasn't
stuff.
really behind the scenes.
Well,
We were doing Lend-Lease and all that stuff.
Yeah, but we weren't like openly involved in the war yet, per se.
Right.
For a long time, and people did not like that.
Well, right.
Ironically, that is the genesis of the first America First movement, because Donald Trump, contrary to what he says, did not actually invent that phrase. But he invented it for our time period. Let's say that. But
dropping little what am I trying to think of? When you drop a little bird seed, that was
breadcrumbs.
A breadcrumb approach to winning over the hearts and minds of the American people, because the Nazis were killing American boys on merchant marine ships and other cargo ships, and out there.
Isn't that like what the Lusitania was and stuff? Like,
yeah, I guess so. I think the Nazis did. Yeah, that was a cruise ship, right? So that was just, but it was probably used for troops or whatever.
I don't remember.
It doesn't matter. But so like we were raring to go by the time.
It was during World War I. Sorry, but it was sunk by Germans.
By the time December 7th, 1941 happened with the Japanese, the Germans declared war on us. Obviously, they were in place position to do it, but the American people were ready to kill some Nazis. But let me get back to this.
When our country is dying.
When you say
and our
don't
country
help
is
us,
dying.
Look, yes, focus on our country. I'm all for it. But
these platitudes are just something that the left used to employ against guys like Tucker during the Iraq War. And I remember there was a Bill O'Reilly segment.
Foreign wars.
And Michael Moore was on. And Michael Moore, his question to Bill O'Reilly, or whoever the guest was, said, would you send your son to die in Iraq right now? And it's such a lazy word trap.
Well, the right's all doing that now. And
I know the right's all doing that. But because and the correct answer is, no, I don't want to send my son to die anywhere.
But don't you think that part of that, right, and like kind of playing devil's advocate, because I'm not as non-interventionist as Tucker has now decided to be, or like a lot of these people are, but playing devil's advocate because I am a millennial and I grew up with people who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I've known people who've served there and have subsequently, I don't know what's the phrase we say now, died by suicide. Like there's a lot of out there. There's a lot of broad ramifications at home from these wars that we got involved in when I was like coming of age. And believe me, like I was very radicalized by like at my high school during the Afghanistan war, and I think just before we got into Iraq, my high school decided to ban military recruiters from our campus.
Of course.
Because of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Because they were an anti-gay organization. So we wouldn't let the KKK recruit at our campus. But it was very clearly tied into these anti-war movements at that time. And I remember... I have, like I say, I have very mixed feelings about it, because being that age in particular, where a lot of people my age served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and a lot of them were not benefited by it. You know, for various reasons. Some of them are not with us. It sucks to say it, but that's true. And so Trump has had a lot of success with that demographic, and Tucker has had a lot of success with that demographic, the sort of younger millennial, older Gen Zer demographic. Trump has been very, very popular. But that is also the exact same generation, and young men in particular have been so burned by the global war on terror, so burned by it. Don't you think? And that's who went and did that.
You think the millennials have been burned by that?
Yeah, by the Iraq WMD stuff, and I really think that 9/11 and the subsequent war on terror and the way I saw the liberals around me acting about it was a big part of why I was conservative at that time.
I agree with that.
And,
yeah.
But that being said, a lot of American guys my age bore the consequences of that, largely unseen and unnoticed by a lot of the people here. So there's a very...
How do they bore the consequences? You mean by being in combat and getting
by
PTSD
being in
and all that stuff?
combat and PTSD and all of those things, and sometimes killed, and some traumatic brain injuries and all the rest of that.
Well, I understand, but that was not unique to those wars.
No, it was not. It was not unique to those wars at all. But the way that those wars were handled and the public opinion about them after the fact, and the way we treated veterans of those wars and all those sort of surrounding pieces, that has an impact on how people of my generation in particular see another call to do this again. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what Tucker's playing into that audience, right? I think that young men who are demographic, who largely voted for Trump and are very pro-Trump and are very America first, I think that they're extremely wary of this. For visceral gut reaction reasons that go back to a lot of this stuff around around these times. Sorry, I don't want to be 9/11 happened to me because it didn't happen to me.
Why would somebody extremely young men be wary? Oh, okay, so wary, not weary.
Wary, cautious.
Okay.
About getting involved in that's why people are using the phrase "another foreign war," is because people my age, right? And I guess I'm not young anymore, so I probably shouldn't even use the phrase "young men," but millennial and younger men, right? They saw 9/11 and they heard the WMD's speech, and they joined the armed forces, and some of them are not with us anymore or are fucked up now or whatever because
the WMD was not the only reason to attack Iraq.
No, it was not the only reason to attack Iraq, and I don't think any of those people. I don't think any of those people think Saddam Hussein was great. I don't think that's the argument, and I think that people who make that argument are incorrect. But I think that I think that the reason Tucker has taken this posture is because he's playing to a very specific audience. And I think that specific audience is men 35 and younger, right? Not that that's even my age. I'm older than that. But you get what I'm saying, right? Is it this is the generation that came up with this and has been doing this and is not pleased, right? And
yeah, but I think that this counts the
Biden
fact
squander all their work and blood and tears in Afghanistan.
I understand, but I do think that as well that they were also victims of leftist propaganda.
I think that's
for years. Air America was built off of going against George W. Bush. He was made a punchline in their culture by Jon Stewart and other influential people on the left.
That's true also.
There wasn't there was one pro-troop movie about the whole damn thing, like the Hurt Locker. All the others was about WMD and evil Bush chain. Like there was so much propaganda going into making people hate, and so if they're wary, it's because they were told that they said WMDs and called it a PowerPoint, and turns out they were lying. And that's also not accurate. They obviously didn't lie about not finding WMDs. They effed up about not finding WMDs. But they also gave a bunch of reasons. And if they bothered to look in the years previous to this, you realize that Hussein was an a-hole. He didn't comply by any of the terms of the ceasefire of the first Gulf War. He was a shifty jerk who wanted to have nuclear weapons. And after 9/11, at that time, you look around and you say, Osama's got to go, Taliban has to go, Al-Qaeda has to go, light them up everywhere they are. And you look over there and you say, Gaddafi? And he says, I got no problem with you anymore. I don't want any problem. And then you look around and you say, Saddam Hussein, we want to check for weapons. And he says, no, F you. You're not checking for weapons. And if you come here, I'm going to destroy you. Then you say, you know what? I don't know that we need to go in there and whack this guy in his things. But yes, I think it's worth it to go in there and whack this guy. If you look at the first Gulf War, it took 2 weeks. And of course, because all these DC bureaucrats don't know shit about what's really happening inside the country, they said, we'll be greeted as heroes. And so it went sideways.
Well, but that's your experience. That's your Gen X experience. Yeah,
because I'm older. Because I remember the years before this shit and before John Stewart was around.
Right. So the Gulf War was your generation's war, and that was 2 weeks.
Yeah, I understand, Alice. But before that, we had the Vietnam War, which was all those warnings about the Gulf War. I know, but all the warnings about the Gulf War at that time were Peter are not saying the Arab Street, Wolf Blitzer.
Well, sometimes you get one and sometimes you get the other.
Well, I know, but history exists previous to that. History exists previous to that. We just talked about Lend-Lease, Alice. That was 40 years before I was born.
But here's my point, is that it's very hard to know in advance whether it's going to be the Gulf War or whether it's going to be the global war on terror. It's hard to know whether it's going to be a war in advance that everyone agrees you should have got into, like World War II, or if it's going to be a war that everyone agrees, whether they're right or wrong. I don't even know if I believe this about Vietnam.
World War II is also not a pristine engagement.
Of course not, but what I'm saying is, like, we come up with these narratives after the fact, like, oh, this one was a good war to get into. Oh, this one was a debacle. And, like, that doesn't necessarily...
The people crafting narratives are not good faith players.
It's not obvious at the time which one you have until after it happened.
Spent 6 or 7 years propagandizing for the Iraq War in a well-thought-out way.
Of course, he's full of shit.
No, well, he's full of shit now, right?
Tucker is not... Tucker
as far as I'm concerned,
and I don't know what Tucker thinks deep down inside his little heart. Like, I do not know.
If you're an Arab country or a Middle Eastern country with a despot, and you see what happened, and you see the flotilla and armada that George W. Bush sent over, there was never any military of that size sent over to Afghanistan and Iraq. Like that can't be done in the world. That can only be done by the United States. And all those troops, and doing that, said to the world that it is capable, it is possible, and it is allowable that if you F this country in a certain way, that we will come over there and fuck you in a historic way that your fucking goat-eating fucking society has not ready for. And I'm fucking no. And I think that there was the guys in Iraq and Afghanistan did a goddamn great job in these are just wars. The wars are ugly and horrible, and civilians die, and guys die and get made, and it's awful. But you have to set a tone in the world sometimes and say and let the world know that, okay, you get your day, barbarians, to take our buildings down, but we're gonna fuck you up and all your friends too. And you gotta be that. And that's what we did. And so I'm sick of pussies talking about now, looking back, and especially people who weren't even like children back then, and saying, no more foreign wars, man. Fuck you, no more foreign. You don't know. You don't know.
Okay.
But the no more foreign wars thing,
but
that mantra and that culture is always what happens before we've let so much go to not be in a foreign war that we have to get into a foreign war.
Yeah, but your generation's foreign war was you delivering pizzas in Tennessee or wherever. My generation's foreign war killed more people. That's all I'm saying is that people bring their emotional baggage to this shit. And specifically, millennials and Gen Zers have fucking died in these wars. So they have a different emotional reaction to it than Gen Xers do. That's my point. And
first of all, Gen Xers fought in this war too.
Okay,
they were 30 years old when this happened.
True. Okay. So, but my point to you is that.
And by the way, why do you have this idea that there's a consensus that all Iraq vets regretted the whole thing? I don't think that's true whatsoever.
I'm not saying like that there's a consensus. I'm just saying that Tucker is playing to a specific audience, and I happen to know that audience because I grew up amongst them. Okay, so Tucker's playing to an audience right now. Tucker's doing this not because Tucker believes anything necessarily, and I don't even think I agree with Tucker on this necessarily. But my point is that it's hard to know when you get involved in a war what the end result is going to be. The people going to die in World War II did not know what was going to happen or what the point of it was going to be. The people going to die in any war don't know how long it's going to last, what the end result of it is going to be. You hope it's going to be good, but you don't fucking know. You just don't know. You don't know if you're going to make the world better or worse at the end of the day. Like, it's just, that's not a luxury that's afforded to any soldier of any country on earth, is to know whether you're actually doing something that's going to make the world better. Like, you just don't know that. And
I think it shows a weakness of heart to look back now, even your generation. Well, I was just a living pieces. I know your generation, you were all in it. To look back now and say, you know what, that wasn't worth it. In fact, it wasn't worth it. It's like, okay, you can look back on the boat landings at Omaha Beach and say, you know what? In fact, it wasn't worth it. No survivor says that, by the way. They always say it was worth it. And the whole platoon got blown away.
Okay.
But that's war. But
that's
There's a certain suck it upness.
But that's because years later, Hitler was dead and stuff was different. It's not. They didn't have friggin' Joe Biden handing Hitler and all his buddies over a bunch of American equipment at the end of it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it just leaves a different frigging taste in your mouth. That's what it's about. And like, that's not Trump's fault. And that doesn't mean that it's a bad idea to get involved in Iran now. Like, people shouldn't take things on the basis of like their own emotional baggage, right? Like, but that's why Tucker is playing to this audience, and that's what the America First thing is reacting to. And that was a very key constituency for Trump getting elected, was people who felt that way. That's why Tulsi Gabbard, who he says he's ignoring, was his DNI. You know what I mean? Like, she's a person who's absolutely 100% in that camp.
Are you going to continue reading your Code Pink talking points? Or
I'm not reading Code Pink
Can I continue with Ted Cruz here?
But the naivete...
You don't even know how much money this costs. You don't know anything about the country whose government you want to overthrow, and you're calling me reckless.
I want to stop a lunatic who wants to murder us from getting nuclear weapons that could kill millions of Americans.
Fair.
You say, I can't see how that benefits America in any way. That is bizarre. And by the way,
bizarre.
Isolationism, your foreign policy is the foreign policy of Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama.
Oh, absolutely.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm a big leftist. This is so silly. Now I'm Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama. Okay. Let me just say one last thing.
So how is your foreign policy different from Jimmy Carter's? Seriously.
Please.
But
there we go. You know, it's good for the goose.
I asked that question seriously.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Jimmy Carter?
So
what century is this? I am the product of
hang on, pause talking for a second. That's not necessarily an unfair comparison.
Sure.
Jimmy Carter has something to do with the history of our foreign policy towards Iran, no?
Yes.
Like a little bit? Specifically this country and our foreign policy towards them.
Yes.
Last 25 years, watching carefully, being involved in the periphery, and I see an unending string of foreign policy disasters that have impoverished and hurt our country.
Unending string.
Unending string. They would include Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria. And our inability to stop the Houthis, by the way, in Yemen, which exposes us as weak, and I grieve over that. So these are failures. You helped preside over some of them.
Well, in some of these that he's talking about, precisely not being interventionist was a problem. Like the Syria thing, Russia filled the vacuum. The Libya thing, other actors filled the vacuum.
No, I mean, and specifically in Iran before not being interventionist. filled a vacuum.
Member of the Senate.
What failures, foreign policy failures, have I presided over?
Well, we were unable to beat Russia in the war that you supported against Russia. You've been spending the last 3 years telling us that Vladimir Putin is evil and we're going to beat him with other people's children, and 1 million of those kids are now dead. You've never apologized for that. That was a full failure.
By the way, look, the level of number of falsehoods you lay out just in one statement are rather.
You haven't supported the war against Russia?
Are rather stunning. So the war against Russia was caused, which I have explained at great detail, by Joe Biden's weakness.
But you supported the war.
If you want to talk, we can talk Russia and Ukraine. I'm happy to talk about it.
Do you think that's been a success?
No, it's been an absolute disaster.
Okay, but you supported it. Shouldn't you apologize?
No, you should apologize. I'm not going to engage in the demanding of apologies. So I'm like,
that's my point. Is all these failures and no one ever says I'm sorry?
Matter, or do you just throw out if you want to talk, we can talk.
Okay, I do. I want to know why that seems like a true disaster for the United States.
Okay, let me get to this next one here because this is important.
We're getting close to Shattuck time.
Okay, just one more we have to play. Okay, it's on my.
I have to make an announcement about the event that I was going to get to at the beginning and never got to.
This is Tucker. Okay, talking about Iran. Come on.
Is it though?
Because it's so important. I voted for Donald Trump. I campaigned because it's so important. I voted for Donald Trump. I campaigned for Donald Trump. Yeah. He's our president. And we're on the cusp of a war. So if there's evidence that Iran paid hitmen to kill Donald Trump and is currently doing that, where's that? Like, what are you even talking? I've never heard that before.
Okay.
Where's the evidence? Who are these people? Why haven't they been arrested? Why are we not at war with Iran?
That's a great question to ask.
How do you know that that's true?
We know that it's true because we have been told that by the military and our intelligence community for the last 2 years.
We meaning who?
Congress has and the public. I mean, we had multiple testimonies. I can send you.
Because it's so important.
All right, so I've got that on my, I tweeted that out and I searched a screenshot of a video of me looking for it. And it was a news story. It's everywhere. The Iranians have been trying to. It's verified. So that's either Tucker's lying or he's disingenuous or he's a sniper, so he doesn't see the rest of the world. He just sees the points he wants to make, and that's where his.
Of course, Tucker's disingenuous. Like, I can't believe we're even saying this.
All right, chat.
Yeah, let's head to the chat. Okay, so party. This is posted in the Patreon. I also mentioned it on the show. If you would like to RSVP, you can email burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com. We will forward it to Phil, who is running this operation, and Julie, who's really running the operation, I assume, behind the scenes. There is a party, July 19th, rain date July 20th. That's a Saturday and a Sunday. It is at Julie and Phil's house in Attleboro. And if you would like to come, there is a small per family fee just to help cover the cost of food. This is at Phil and Julie's home, so we're limited in space. It is more than half full. We have more than half filled it with current RSVPs. So if you would like to go, now is the time to RSVP and reserve your spot. We would love to see you there. We will be there. All the little Shattocks will be there. There's a pool. You bring your kids. The fee is like per couple/family. So bring your kids. Bring like a dessert you like. Bring some beers to drink. We're going to have a great time with all of you. Anything that I'm forgetting to add?
It'll be great. I look forward to it very much. Tom Shattuck's chili dude.
Oh, yes. I forgot that totally. Yes. Tom has promised to make everybody a big crock pot full of his chili, which is not edible by normal humans. It's not edible. It can't be eaten.
Good.
I mean, like, I think it tastes good, but
wonderful.
It's not worth the suffering for the next 2 days in the bathroom. I'm sorry.
Stop that, Alice.
It's true. I can't eat your chili. I cannot eat your chili. It's not normal chili. But if you feel you're brave, then you can come and have some of Tom Shattuck's chili. That's July 19th and 20th. burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com.
Hi, Steve from Merrimack.
Hey, Steve.
Jose Padilla got his wish. Going forward now, fewer people in his home state of California, when his name comes up, will go, who? Jesus Christ. What a pussy. What a candy ass.
Absolutely right, dude.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And he's like blubbering. And he's moving to my knees. Oh, God. Pussy. Ugh. Ugh. My goodness.
Hey, Tom and Alice.
Hey, Tommy.
I'm quickly realizing that the deep state is so entrenched that I don't think we're ever going to fully get Trump's agenda. I mean, they are delaying his picks for posts. They're blocking his foreign policies.
Wait, is this right? Is it true? Do you think? Like, who's the deep state in this sense? Or do you think there are actors within these bureaucracies that are holding stuff up? I mean, that's certainly true. Because everybody's an activist now.
Tying everything up in court. Now they're fighting
That's
him
true.
on putting genders on passports.
Yeah. Can you imagine? The Supreme Court ruled.
Oh,
I
I was
that,
in
right?
my WeWork today, and some people were there who, I don't know what it is about being in a WeWork. These people just talk about like important crap out loud, like no one can hear them. And I'm like, do you not know that like you're essentially in a public place? Like, I understand. I don't know, but they were like some kind of law firm, I think, and they were all upset about the transgender healthcare court case that SCOTUS shot down. They were like all worried about that, and then they were like trying to look up like dark money groups to figure out who runs all of them or whatever. I don't know. But that was fascinating. I don't know. It just boggles my mind that people talk about this stuff. A couple of weeks ago, a girl was there like doing a job interview, like not in one of like the private little soundproof booths doing a job interview, like in the common area lobby of the WeWork doing a job interview that very clearly was not going well. And was like, just freaking out loud for everybody to hear. Somebody was talking about somebody's affair in there on the phone. Like, do people think when you freaking take a phone call, like that people ignore what you're saying? Because they do not.
It's great.
Crazy.
Yeah, the Supreme Court ruled today, essentially standing up a Tennessee law that said you can't do the transgender surgery stuff anymore.
Yeah.
So it's the end of the world.
So they were talking about, they were like, oh my God, like the transgender case did not go well. And so then immediately I'm like going onto Twitter. I'm like, when they say it did not go well, like what side are they? I assume, but yeah, that was funny.
New York Times had a headline today that says, images of handcuffed Democrats start to pile up in Trump's crackdown. They're piling up.
Do they remember, by the way, when they made an entire like week of news out of his mugshot because they finally got to arrest him and they were so excited about it?
It seems to be pretty endless, and it seems that we have not rooted out the key people that need to be taken out from the previous administration.
I think there's a lot of that, Tommy. There's no doubt. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people who work for the federal government, and so
it's hard to fire them all.
Yeah, no, I
Just
agree.
like it's hard to deport the millions of illegals. Like they're trying right now to like turn a really big ship around.
Yeah, and entrenched people are tough to displace.
Their tactic is clearly going to be delay, minimize the damage, and hopefully move on once they get a strategy. I don't know. It's kind of depressing.
I get it.
57.
I disagree on that it's depressing. I'm more optimistic this week than I've been in a long time. I think there's a rejiggering going on, and it looks new and different, but I think the bad guys are losing now. I do. They're making a lot of noises.
Lindsey Graham is pretty happy.
I'm a Lindsey Graham fan, which I am.
That's like what people mean when they say the deep state.
I think so, and I also think that they be like, yeah, like that's like there's nothing more that pisses people off in good friends of ours where we disagree on the war stuff. I was a Lindsey McCain guy. I'm a Lindsey McCain, George W. Bush. I'm a neocon. I guess it was what I'm saying here, but don't hate me for it.
What's with all the crying?
Yeah.
Alex Padilla? They put my hands behind my back, and they put me on the floor, and I don't know if anybody somebody vacuumed the rug, and I was on my knees. And then that girl who sang the national anthem in Spanish in front of the Dodgers game, I can sing a song. They are just showing their true colors. God, liberals can't handle life.
Yeah.
They cannot handle it. And everything has to be a play about them.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about the Dodgers girl and some
thank
other
God
people.
for Donald Trump. That's all I'm going to say.
Some other people too. I had a whole bunch of things.
We'll get to it tomorrow.
We'll get to it tomorrow, hopefully. But yeah, Tom was like, "No, that's on the cutting room floor. We've got to talk about Tucker. We've got." I know that's where everybody is. I understand.
I'm a professional, Alice.
I have some other things I want to talk about, hopefully tomorrow.
Okay. Here's Billy, by the way, who my moles say will be showing up at Attleboro.
Hey, Billy from Manchester.
Hey, Billy.
So, I binge listened to a few of the shows. It's not a shot of Shattuck anymore. It's so long that it's a fifth of Shattuck.
Oh, my goodness.
Tom in Thomaston, big fan right now because he likes me.
Here we go.
There you
that's
go.
Number one, or that's number two.
Now, hold on. The Shot of Shattuck show, I promised 30 minutes. I've been doing 40 minutes or more. You know what? That comes from podcast listening bias on my part. I don't love 30-minute podcasts. I don't, even though I produce one with the All You Can Eat show. But the
idea is supposed to be but I feel like it's okay as long as it's a different animal than this show, which I think that it is.
I guess so. I mean, you're not there. I get stepped on.
Well, no, but I think that it is a different animal than this show. One of our reviews was saying essentially, go subscribe to the Shut Up Shattuck show if you haven't already, first of all you guys. But one of the reviews was saying, like, I thought this would just be more burn barrel, but like Tom just getting into his thing like has a totally different vibe than the other thing. I'm rephrasing and it's not going to be accurate to what you were saying, so I'm sorry, but more or less essentially saying I thought it was going to be more burn barrel, but it wasn't. So I think as long as you're doing your own Tom thing and not like the burn barrel where I came in and ruined everything.
Right.
As long as it's not more of this terrible show that everyone hates, then
Shot of Shattuck show is for the boys.
Exactly.
And number three, High Pitch Alice has got to go. I mean,
Correct.
It's just it's unlistenable. The interrupting,
correct.
The excitement.
Well, I will say this: that Alice, she's always had a very lovely voice. And the excitement is usually something that I say that I get positive feedback for, so I like that. And she does have a good voice.
And your kids drink too much milk.
They do drink too much milk. You kidding me? Dude, believe me. I had to go and get 2 more gallons yesterday, and they just sucking down.
If you dropped a gallon on the street in Haverhill.
Oh yeah, that's true. But like all the, I don't know. It's just like they all like get huge glasses of milk and like happily just. That's
a me thing, though. I used to love that as a kid. You should save this for All You Can Eat. We should do an All You Can Eat tomorrow for Juneteenth. I'm off work.
As if none of this stuff like requires fat old Tom Shattuck going to the store. But to them, it's just clean dishes. Oh, big vats of milk. Oh.
When I was a kid, I used to love to I would pour myself a big glass of milk, and I'd make a big bowl of Smart Food popcorn, and I would sit and eat Smart Food popcorn.
Speaking of cutting room floor, Jesus.
Steve from Merrimack.
Hey, Steve.
Tom, I believe the phrase that Nancy Pelosi used that you couldn't find during your conversation with VB was job lock.
Oh, yes, that's
she was
right.
expounding on the joys of no more job lock. So a bunch of layabouts people could become layabouts and then become the next Dylan Thomas or some shit like that. Thank you.
Oh, that's totally true, man. That was totally right. So they could follow their dreams. They won't be job locked. Do you remember what that was about? So that's
the idea was that Obamacare was solving the problem of people being forced to stay in a job to have health insurance.
Right, because they could follow their dreams of
being artists and musicians.
Sorry.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Really appreciate all of you guys being here. So many people have joined us on Patreon. That's great. That's patreon.com/burnbarrel. If you want to do that, there's extra content there. There's joining live chats. We are going to figure out the new RSS feed for the podcast. Did you see somebody else complained about it?
Oh, is it still not working?
You didn't check the box
Yeah,
on one of the
on one
recent episodes. You
I
didn't
did.
check the box. It says.